Good afternoon from the farmer's garden. I'm one of the farmers. I'm in the kitchen right now. So I've been making jam all afternoon. I've got over 40 jars of jam over here cooling, and it's time for me to make supper now. And I thought, man, what's something easy that we can have? Biscuits. We're gonna have biscuits for supper. But I'm also gonna show you how to take this same recipe that I'm using for biscuits and turn it into cinnamon rolls, because that's what we're gonna have for breakfast in the morning. So this is a dual purpose recipe. And the beautiful thing about it is this one can go in the fridge. Even though it's a bread recipe, it can be cooled and it won't hurt anything. It actually does better that way. So we're going to make Memi's Magic Biscuits and cinnamon rolls. All right, so I'm hoping that you'll be able to see everything that I'm doing here. It's always hard to get the camera set up, but we'll see what we can make happen. Okay, so this is Memi's Magic Biscuits, and the first thing that we need to do to get this going is to make some sour milk. So this recipe calls for 2 cups of buttermilk. I didn't have any buttermilk in the house, so I'm going to take almost 2 cups of milk and add 2 tablespoons of vinegar to it. You can also use lemon juice if lemon juice is what you have around. We just need a acid basically to add to that, and that's going to sour the milk. So while that's getting ready over there, the next thing we need to do is prepare our yeast. So I have a tablespoon of yeast, and I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of very hot water. Now you can either warm some water on the stove or in the microwave. Our water from the faucet gets extremely hot, so I usually just do that. This time I had some warm water already, and so I'm using that, but it's 3 tablespoons of warm water in with the yeast, and we're gonna let that set while we start the other things. So now we have the buttermilk going and we have the yeast going. So in a large mixing bowl, we're going to combine 5 cups of flour. We're going to add 3 tablespoons of baking powder, a teaspoon of baking soda, and a teaspoon of salt. We're going to put in 4 tablespoons of sugar. And then I like to just sort of combine that a little bit before I move on with my wet ingredients. So that's together. Now, we're going to add the buttermilk. Sorry, I lost track of where I was. We're going to add the buttermilk and the oil. And then that yeast has only been sitting for just a minute, but it really doesn't take long in this case. Also, if you don't already have all your stuff measured out, it gets a little bit longer to set. So we're going to add that yeast as well. I can actually already smell that yeast activating. So that is what gives that wonderful smell to the bread. All right, now these are biscuits. That's what they're called. They're called Magic Biscuits. I could take this once it's all stirred together, and I could put it straight into the refrigerator. And then in the morning I could get it out and roll it and cut it into biscuits, and we can have it for breakfast. I actually do that fairly often. The magic behind these is that they can be chilled. And you don't have to bake them all at once, so if you wanted to get out enough for, 6 or 8 biscuits one morning and then leave the rest in there. And there's a lot of stuff that you can make with this recipe. I've done Hot Pockets before, where I cut them out into circles, and then I fill them up with some kind of yummy like pot pie type filling and made Hot Pockets. Biscuits, and like I say, we're going to do cinnamon rolls today. You can also do fruit rolls by filling them with some homemade jam. All right, so that's getting all mixed together. And at this point, it would be ready to go into the fridge if that's what you wanted to do with it. But we need breakfast or supper tonight, so we're going to go ahead and work with it right here, right now. So I'm going to get all my dishes cleaned up and make myself a space to be able to roll these out and cut them. Okay, so I'm going to start with the biscuits, since that's the part I need to go ahead and get into the oven. We're going to lightly flour. You can use a pastry sheet if you want, or a pastry mat. I just use my counter because that works. And I'm only going to do about half of this as biscuits. It will be slightly sticky at first, but once we rub in some of that flour, it'll get that nice bread texture to it. I have not attempted it yet, but I feel like this would also work as a thick crust pizza. You'd have to roll it out pretty thin, but I bet it would work just fine for that. It does rise nicely, so that's something to keep in mind when you're cutting it. All right, so that's kind of kneaded up and ready. Flour the rolling pin here. And again, it does rise, so we don't want it quite as thick maybe as most biscuits. I'm going to do this, it's probably a little less than 1/2 inch thick right there. Now, you can use a regular biscuit cutter for this, or you can use the ring off of a jar of jelly. That works good. I like to use the ring off of a wide mouth jar for biscuits when we're having sausage biscuits, because these fit the sausage patties that I buy, and so it makes a bigger biscuit. Cut that end a little thin. That's okay. I expect them to rise. This end back here looks better. So cut them out as close together as you can, just to keep from having to mess with the dough as often. We're going to put them on a cookie sheet. The oven is already heating to 400 degrees, so that part's ready. If you want to do the whole thing at once, you will end up with a cookie sheet full of biscuits. That's how my grandmother used to make them. Whenever we would go to her house for dinner, almost no matter what the dinner was, it could be ribs, Thanksgiving dinner, whatever it was, we would have these biscuits. The only exception was when Pop fried fish. We would get hush puppies for that instead of the biscuits. So I'm going to go ahead and roll out this last bit. Now, I did save probably a little better than half for my cinnamon rolls, because when I make the cinnamon rolls, they disappear super fast. And so I want to make sure that I have enough of them for tomorrow. Okay, that's one last biscuit. And I'm going to go ahead and put these into the oven before I start making the cinnamon rolls. All right, so now we're ready to start rolling out the next batch. And I'm going to use not quite all of the dough that is left in the bowl. I've decided to do one smaller batch of cinnamon rolls just to experiment a little bit tonight. Add a little extra flavor for in the morning. I say experiment, I've done it before. I'm just going to do it again. Okay, so we've floured the counter again. We're going to roll these out. I can do it without making a mess and all my other stuff. I'm trying to work fast because right now I have the house to myself. The kids have been with Brandon helping with some stuff at the farm today, and they are all on their way home. And I know that they will have a million stories for me to listen to, and so I'm going to try to get this done before they're home. All right, so I roll these out fairly thin. Again, they're going to rise. So decent rectangle there. Now I've got some butter that I've already melted. Y'all know I don't measure things, but this is about 1/2 cup of sugar and about a tablespoon of cinnamon. Do it however you like. More or less cinnamon, however you want to do it. And I am going to mix those together. I have no idea if this is how you would learn to do this in culinary school or not, but this is how you learn to do it in my kitchen. Didn't get the butter completely melted, so I got some big chunks in there. That's okay. So we're going to pour it on. I want to cover the whole thing. And this is messy. Prepare to have to do some cleaning when you finish. So we're just going to spread that on. Keep hearing those jars seal. Such a nice sound. Big chunks of butter. We'll kind of keep those in the middle so when they roll up, it won't be in the way. All right. Go as close to the edge as possible. And again, it's going to make a mess. It's going to ooze out everywhere, and that's okay. All right. So I'm going to start actually on the narrow end. I didn't get it fully rectangular. Uh-oh, didn't get it floured good enough either. That's okay. It's all okay. Okay. All right. Now you can use dental floss, wrap around and use that to cut. I'm just going to use a knife tonight. And then I'm going to set them in my pan over here. Now, I'll show you in a minute. This dough looks super thin. It looks terrifyingly thin, like you're going to have just no cinnamon rolls at all. But I promise you it will rise. Oh, y'all. I did make a mess tonight, didn't I? That's what I get for trying to rush. Okay. So those are in the pan. You know what? The counter's clean. That's why I'm cooking on it. I'm going to save that. Some of these are going to be delicious. There we go. I'm telling you. I promise I use better recipes when I make the jam. Okay, so this one is ready to go into the fridge. This one is not getting baked tonight. It's going to go in the fridge for tomorrow. You can see that the dough looks really thin on there, but it's going to rise. And then it's going to bake up and fill nearly this whole pan. There'll be a little bit of space, but this is ready to go in the fridge and be our breakfast in the morning after we bake it up. All right, got the cinnamon cleaned up. For the curious, yes, I did lick the spoon. Yes, it is amazing. All right, now I'm going to use this last little bit of dough, and I didn't save much, just a little handful here. We're going to make some jam rolls, some fruit rolls. So same principle, floured countertop. I'm going to roll it out. Again, we can go pretty thin. It's going to rise. And I'm not trying to get very many of these tonight. So I have some peach jam here, because who doesn't love peach jam? Put that on there nice and thick. And it will be harder to spread peach jam. Strawberry spreads really well, spoon spreads pretty well. There are flavors that spread better than others, but the peach just sounded perfect this time. So that gets spread around. Again, try to get close to the edges. And then here we go. Roll this up. And this one is going to go ahead and go into the oven and be baked so that we can enjoy it tonight. So I'm just trying to get 6 of them here. There we go. And so you see they're not filling the pan. They're fairly small in there. I'm going to put those in the oven, and in a minute I'll show you how much they rise. The biscuits are ready to come out. So you can see that they rise up and they're nice and golden and fluffy. So these make really great biscuits. We always used them, like I said, as dinner rolls, but we eat them for breakfast. We eat them with holiday meals, all the good stuff. All right, it looks like our peach rolls are about done. I'm going to go ahead and take them out. Hot pan. Okay, so these are done, and they're going to be nice and soft, much softer than canned or any of those things. Can't get them up there for you to see. You can see they did rise some, and they're nice and flaky and wonderful. So that's supper tonight. We're going to have some biscuits with some jam and honey and some peach rolls because that'll be delicious. And we'll eat the cinnamon rolls for breakfast in the morning. So that's a super simple recipe that I use. Like I say, I use that bread for lots of things. Pot pies, I'm going to try it as pizza crust, the biscuits, the cinnamon rolls, the fruit rolls, all the things. And because you can make it ahead of time and stick it in the fridge, it's basically like having like homemade canned biscuits almost as far as the convenience. So you can make your dough ahead of time, stick it in there and pull it out when you need it. And it's just super convenient and super tasty. Can't wait to dig in, honestly. Anyways, thank y'all for stopping by the kitchen tonight. I hope you enjoyed your visit. Y'all be sure and come back when you can stay longer.